Alright fellas, it's been a buff 2 years in the making. Secretly, I have been waiting for Trom not only for Ruler Moriarty, but so my sweet baby boy Siegfried could finally be acknowledged for how good he is. And you might be saying to yourself, ZTO, what are you talking about? The buffs for Siegfried, and I guess Sherlock as well, are now live on the NA side of things. And if you don't know why this is a big deal, Siegfried, as I said 2 years ago, is literally broken now. And since I've already done a review of Siegfried in the past, I'm going to treat this more as an evaluation video as someone that has been using Siegfried on the JP side for the last 2 years, and as someone who has Siegfried now at NP5 over on the NA side of things, and just testing them out today, or I guess the last 2 days, I guess, when this video is going up. They've been very good regardless. They have been a whole lot of fun, more so on the NA side of things, because bro, I got him at NP5 and I actually have the supports to make him even better. So he just looks and feels amazing over there. But even on the JP side of things, I think he's only NP1 or something, and he still feels really nice, although you definitely need to be fighting more dragon enemies if you got him closer to NP1. But realistically, if you are a veteran player, you've probably got this guy at what, NP3, maybe even NP5, because I'll just tell you straight up, even though I really like Siegfried, I did not have to chase this guy. He just pops up on banners, which is really funny, you know, given his nickname being Sumanai, right? Meaning sorry. So, you know, he just pops up, sorry, I know I'm not the servant you wanted, but for me, nah, I wanted that dude. So strap in, get comfortable, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We're going to do a little bit of a discussion just talking about where Siegfried is at now in FGO now that he's received his buff. Because beforehand, I already thought he was in a decent position because, sure, he didn't have a battery, but his damage against dragons was still really strong, especially for a 4-star option that you could get on any banner. You know, honestly, you could get him on the tutorial banner as well, which I know most people would say, oh, just go reroll for Herc or Emiya, which probably is the better idea, let's be honest. But if you do get Siegfried, you'll get some usage out of him because there's a lot of dragon enemies in the game. There's a lot of dragon servants in the game. I remember in year 1, I was super thankful to have Siegfried for the Goddess Rongominiad fight because, well, she's a dragon-type enemy, and I didn't have Mordred. I mean, Mordred, I think, was the go-to one to use, but not everybody could be big bucks balling and have, you know, Mordred at NP1 or higher to just 1 or 2 tap Goddess Rongominiad. Some of us had to break out the boy Siegfried, and I was happy to do so. And he's definitely come a long way since then. I mean, the guy is rocking, what, a native 230% power mod against dragons from his 3rd skill and his NP alone? That's ridiculous. Consider how insane it is that Tyra has a 200% free power mod against Genji enemies, but that is balanced because, well, there's not a whole lot of Genji enemies in the game. Then consider that, well, there's not a ton of dragon enemies in the game. They are a lot more common than you bump it into a random Genji enemy. I mean, how many times do you fight wyverns or big dragons, or how many times are you going to fight dinosaurs going into Lost Belt 7? Even some of the demon pillars in relation to Lilim Harlot have the dragon trait for obvious spoiler reasons, so you fight these guys all the time, right? And a lot of these servants you will see in free quests, right? You know, you got like all the Artorias in there, obviously, like I mentioned earlier. You have the Lancer Artorias, you have the Kiyohimes, your Melts, or I think it is just the Summer Meld, but you get my point. There are some servants that you'll run into that he'll be really good into being able to fight because he has the best AoE damage out of all Buster AoE sabers when he has his power mod. The only person that gets close to Siegfried's 66.7 is Mordred with the Artoria power mod, whatever you want to call it, that comes in at 56.8, but Mordred is a 5-star. The boy Siegfried has some extra added value because he's an SR and theoretically is a lot easier to get. And the funny thing is that dragon power mod does overlap with Mordred's power mod as well. Obviously, you're going to have people that are just going to, you know, use Mordred anyway because they like Mordred. But what I'm saying is the boy Siegfried is now competing. He's in there now that they gave him this 30% battery, because 230% power mod on a fairly common enemy type, that's already really good. But then also having 30% defense against them for 3 turns, that's also really nice. Then you add on the fact that the 30% battery does allow him to Buster Farm, and they slapped a 30% attack buff on there just so he has more consistent damage, because some people will point out, well, ZTL, you got to look at the last part of that 3rd skill. He has a 50% mana burst, but it only lasts for 1 time. I'm going to tell you to look at the cooldown. Sure, it is only 1 turn, but this does mean that you could pop it on the 2nd wave, and with double Koyanskaya, get it back on the third wave, which not only means you have the Buster buff and the decent, natural damage, nothing to write home about without the Dragon Power mod, but still decent, good damage on the second and third wave. But you can also stack an additional 80% Dragon Power mod for 310% Dragon damage, which is absurd. Like, that is absolutely ridiculous. Nobody should be allowed to do this much damage to an enemy type that's not even that rare. I swear, every single event, and really every event chapter, we get some type of dragon appearing. I mean, even Lost Belt 6, it's all about Faye, and then we just randomly have Melusine show up as Albion, which, spoiler alert if you weren't that far, I guess, into Lost Belt 6. But I'm pretty sure every single event has some dragon enemy in it, whether it's a servant you fight at the end of the free quest, or it's the random wyverns or the big dragons that you fight in some of the free quests themselves as kind of the trash mob enemies. Regardless, nobody should be allowed to just dominate stages like this and be lower on the rarity pool. They're not even a 5-star. You could have picked this guy up for free off the SR ticket. And the other thing is that he's just not even that bad going into fights as well, actual real challenge quests and more difficult nodes. Sure, he doesn't have raw survivability, but this guy can actually get some really good NP refund because he just gives himself so much NP gain. He stacks it on his NP, 20% for 3 turns, so kind of like baby Melusine over there, as she's probably going to be able to stack it a bit easier, as, I mean, Siegfried sure can loop his NP a good couple of times if you've got double Koyanskaya, but he's got to be a baby version of Melusine who can do it 6 times in a row and just keep that up continually. But he also does have a very odd NP gain buff on his first skill, 37.5%. With his natural 0.83% NP gain, you can get some pretty decent refund, even though his card hits aren't all that high, because unfortunately he is a year 1 servant. But he also does pack a heal and a debuff cleanse on himself, which is kind of nice, because if you're bringing him with people like Koyanskaya or Merlin, they don't really have debuff cleanses. So being able to kind of manage the one thing that your supporters aren't able to do is nice, because sometimes you do break a bar and the enemy will NP seal you or lower your NP damage, give you an attack down, and just being able to remove that is super, super nice going into some of those fights. So again, consider this more of an evaluation or an appreciation post for Siegfried, because he is one of those characters in Fate that is in my upper echelon. Ever since I watched Fate Apocrypha, I just really like this dude. And you can call me a little bit of a dummy, but when I was watching Fate Apocrypha, I didn't really get the connection between Siegfried and Sigurd. I wasn't as into the whole lore thing. I didn't know they were like 2 sides of the same coin, but since I also like Sigurd a lot from Lost Belt 2, it's just this infinite circle of them just making each other way more cool, So I have to give them some kind of an appreciation post. So if you have Siegfried, rejoice. He's going to be a fairly decent Buster farmer if you want to bring him to those, but if you see a dragon, oh boy, you've got that on lockdown. Because again, remember, with the Dragon Power mod, he is far and away out-damaging all the other Buster AoE sabers, so he's going to cook for you. Just know you're going to need a couple of Dragon Fangs to level up those skills. I learned that one the hard way and had to go farm for them, but I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.